Hey there, it's Casey. I'm here at TaxSaleAcademy.com. Thank you so much for joining me today. So I've got a great little training lesson I want to share with you today. And I think it's such a valuable lesson that's going to go on both my YouTube channel as well as the Tax Sale podcast as a Friday edition. So I want to talk to you today about auction fever. So in short, auction fever is caused by the excitement of the action. And it causes a bidder to deviate from their originally intended approach. And I want to start off by telling you a little story, and then we'll get into how you can avoid auction fever. So a number of years ago, probably 14 years ago at this point, I was out of state attending a tax lien auction. Now I was preparing for this auction of my final preparations the day before at a hotel when a friend calls me. He asked me what I was doing. I explained it very briefly, and that was about it. The next thing that I know, he calls me a few hours later to tell me he's on his way. Now, mind you, this was a 15-plus hour drive for him, and he had zero experience in the tax sale business. But he was all about taking the fire, aim, ready approach, where everything is done recklessly and out of order. Anyhow, he shows up and asked me to teach him. And by this time, it's like 10 o'clock at night, the evening before an early morning auction. Long story short, I was pretty annoyed. I gave him a very, very quick lesson, showed him how to research properties real quickly, and I went to bed. He shows up at the auction the next morning. Now, I could only hope that it wasn't going to be as bad as I thought it was going to be for him. I told him to approach it as a practice auction where he was just there to learn, and then he'd go to future auctions and start bidding on properties. He ignored me, unfortunately, and he immediately started bidding. On one specific property, I determined that my max bid for that tax lien was like $1,200. So when I stopped bidding at $1,200, he picked up the bidding. And he was bidding against one other person. And they went back and forth many, many times until my friend ended up paying $4,500 for that lien. There was zero chance that he was going to make a single penny on that lien if it was redeemed. It was absolutely impossible based on the tax lien laws in this state. Like, no chance. He was definitely going to lose money if they redeemed that lien. Now, he might have made money if the property did go through foreclosure. If he was to get that tax lien and they didn't pay it off, and then he was to foreclose that tax lien and then sell the property. He might have made money then, but I knew the stats, and I knew this property would not go to foreclosure. So he grossly overpaid for that lien. So after the auction in the courthouse foyer, I asked him, I said, why did you pay so much money for that property? I was maybe trying to learn. Like perhaps I had missed something. Maybe he found a piece of information when he was researching the property that I had completely overlooked. But his answer shocked me. He looked at me, and then he nodded toward the guy that had bid against him that was also standing in the foyer. And he said, I didn't want him to get it. My friend had caught auction fever, and he had caught so much auction fever that he was willing to waste thousands of dollars as far as I was concerned. The problem is that this happens a lot, especially amongst new bidders who get overly excited. I also see it happen for bidders who are not seeing the success that they desire as far as winning properties. They'll go to one auction and they won't win a property. So the next auction, they get this auction fever and think they must keep bidding and bidding and bidding. Or maybe they go do 5, 6 auctions when all they had to do was be patient. But instead, they get auction fever and they overpay. And what happens is everything that they've done up to that point when they start bidding, it goes right out the window. They bid off of emotions. And emotional bidding is a recipe for disaster. When you start bidding off of your emotions, you will overpay. So how do you avoid auction fever? It's very, very simple. One word: discipline. Now, I discussed this in last week's podcast episode when we talked about bid sheets. But prior to the auction, that's when you're going to put all of your knowledge and all of your effort into researching that property in a way that you are completely confident in the value that you obtain for that property. And then based off of that value, you're going to establish your maximum bid amount. That maximum bid amount is recorded onto your bid sheet and is something that you must stick with, regardless of who bids against you, regardless of how many people are in that room, regardless of how successful or unsuccessful that auction is for you. None of that stuff changes the value of that property, and none of that stuff changes your maximum bid amount. Nothing should change off of that bid sheet just because you're sitting at that auction. It is up to you to have the discipline to research properties properly, to establish your maximum bid amount, and then most importantly, to stick to it. You must stick to your maximum bid amount. Do not ever deviate from your maximum bid amount on the fly. Now, if you continually go to auctions and you are unsuccessful, you can go back after that auction concludes and analyze your maximum bid amounts to see if maybe you should increase those maximum bid amounts, to see if you need to make any adjustments. But they should never be changed mid-auction. Please keep this in mind so you don't end up like my friend with auction fever. Listen, I truly hope that this episode has helped you out. Don't let yourself get that auction fever. It's so easy to get. It's much easier to get than you think until you reach that auction, until you get to that point where you get just a little bit impatient, until you get to that point where the other bidder starts bidding against you, and then you take it personal. But don't be emotional about it. It's business. Don't be emotional. Don't get auction fever, and stick to your numbers. Have that discipline to stick to your maximum bid amounts. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.